It's a lot of throwing up. It's a lot of darkness. It's a lot of crying because you're witnessing what it actually is. Everything that you've buried down inside and that you haven't been able to process because you weren't ready for it. You weren't prepared. You were too young. You developed all the self-defense mechanisms. But if you're coming to drink ayahuasca with me, you're saying, I'm ready to release this, which means I'm going to feel it. I'm going to have to feel it all. I realized I wasn't going to get any answers in the United States for the questions that I had about existence, about reality. And the books weren't doing it anymore. The books on yoga, books on Buddhism, but I needed to go. I kept seeking. And my mother was like, why do you keep looking? What are you looking for? And she didn't want me to go to the Amazon.
Welcome to Inside the Mind's Eye. Today, my guest is Markham Jenkins, a practicing Onaya, which is the Shipibo term for medicine doctor. In today's episode, he shares the experience that led him to the Amazonian jungles of Peru to study with the Shipibo people. He also describes and walks us through the life of living as an ayahuasquero, somebody who helps guide people through ceremony as they begin to diet these plant medicines. I hope you enjoy the conversation, and thanks for joining us. Okay, so you're going to have we're good. Well, by the way, we're all good. We're recording now.
Sweet. Awesome.
So you're going to have a ceremony tonight?
Usually I work 3 to 4 nights a week now, and mostly the weekends, or it'll be like Thursday through Sunday or Friday through Monday. It's kind of how my schedule goes right now.
And there's that many people that you're servicing with the service, like with your helping guide through this process to where you're that busy?
Oh yeah. Every week I'm like that more and more. It's pretty crazy. I mean, it's all guided. My connection to plant intelligence has always been like, look, do the right thing, follow our guidelines, our rules, and we'll just keep sending you people. So I do pretty much zero marketing. I have a profile on a website called Safe Ceremonies, and it's like a third-party verification website that you put your listing up there, like who you are, where you're located, what you offer, and then people can like individual client they have to create their own. They have to sign up for it so that they can just put a review. So it verifies that person is real, has like a real email address, is a real person. They can post their review anonymously. They don't have to provide their actual name, but the website requires them to create some type of profile so that they know that they're a real person. And that way there's some type of verification. But outside of that, it's just word of mouth.
And what's the legality of this? So yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that? We could have done this in person. We're in Georgia, both of us.
Yeah. Well, we could redo it, in person if you want.
So what's the legality?
I actually have a meeting with an attorney or a law firm next week because I think I'm at that point where having some type of legal entity be behind me would be a good idea. Really, most of the ayahuasca organizations in the United States skirt by with religious freedom act. This is a sacrament. You can't persecute someone for following their own religious beliefs. So that's kind of somewhat of a loophole. If the federal government wanted to come after anybody, they can. But there's some. We're using the word church in a very loose way, right? This is a legal term because these aren't necessarily churches. There are some actual churches that utilize ayahuasca as a way to connect to their higher power. Those mostly come from Brazil. You have the UDV and you have Santo Domingo. These are two like Catholic or based organizations that drink ayahuasca in a very large community and they have some type of hierarchical structure, just like you would have in any type of mass. Um, they have rules and how they provide this service, but it's very community based. You'll have like kids there, family members, all big families, it could be 30, 40 people drinking ayahuasca together, but it's quite diluted in its in intensity when they're using it in the way that they are. But that's very much like a mass style setting. Um, and that comes from Brazil. And those churches exist all throughout the United States. And they're kind of the forefronts or the leaders of trying to get the government to back off ayahuasca as an illegal substance and to allow religious entities to utilize it in the way that they see fit for their spirituality. So, and just last year, you had the first ayahuasca church out in, I believe, in New Mexico or Arizona. It's called Church of the Eagle and the Condor, and it's run by an ayahuasquero, which is a trained, Amazonian doctor. His name's Joe Tafur. He's a medical doctor, but also went to Peru and learned from the Shipibo, which is the same group, the indigenous group that I learned medicine from. And he was able to get the first license by the DEA to bring ayahuasca into the United States legally with a permit, with a license. They present at the customs or border, and so that they can, without any problems, they can pick it up and bring it in. No one says anything. The DEA signs off on it, and it's all good. So that's some progress,
That's
there.
great. So what does it look like for you, like with your ceremony tonight? Do you do everything in person? Do you do with the people you work with?
Yeah. So I'm in Shipibo, you'd call me an Onaya, and we say this word Onaya. Why? Because this medicine that we talk about in the United States, and we call it ayahuasca, in Shipibo, it's called uni. And uni is a combination of plants that's brewed down into this thick liquid, usually dark brown to black liquid. It always contains ayahuasca in it, which is a vine, has a multitude of chemicals in it. But then we always include some type of DMT containing plant, that we dimethyltryptamine, which is a psychedelic chemical. And most traditionally, we use this plant called chacruna, but there are many other plants that we can use, not just chacruna that has DMT in it. And different healers or doctors, they can add other plants to their uni medicine. It can be, they can throw in tobacco, they can throw in chiri sanango or ajo sacha. They can, many things can be added to it to create their own medicine. And this concoction was originally intended for us healers to drink. It didn't come into vogue for patients to drink until pretty recently, I would say in the past maybe 80 years, 100 years. So it's our toolbox. It's our method of diagnosing, assessing, and processing out the negative energies that people have in order for them to feel better and for us to understand the root cause of their problem. So the whole point of having DMT in this medicine, that gives us what the Shipibo would say, the light. It gives us the awareness to see the problem, to understand the problem of what this person has. And now we can infer what to do about it, whether we use the ceremonial aspects of our services to heal that person through what we call Ikaro, which is a type of chanting. This chanting comes directly from plant intelligence. Or we are given information on, well, what type of plant medicine will heal this person's problem. We're not just talking about psychedelic chemicals. We're talking about medicinal plants that heal your blood or heal your bones or can heal a rash, your stomach problems, your whatever it may be, or it could be um, of spiritual matters in the sense of relationships. You're trying to remove a bad case of witchcraft or black magic, or um, you want to decouple from your spouse, or you want to recouple with your spouse. You're having issues and you want to resolve them and come back together and become unified again. Well, there's certain plant medicine preparations for that to allow that to happen.
Okay, so I want to dig into the specifics of what it looks like in these ceremonies and how you go through it. But before we go there, I want to kind of hear your story again. We've done this before. We did this 4 years ago, and I want to share a little bit about what happened to me after our conversation.
Yeah,
Um,
please do.
it was the first time that I had encountered or had a interfaced with someone who had your experience with this plant medicine. And at the time, I think you were training under your teacher, right? You hadn't actually
Right.
been ordained. What's the word for it?
Yeah, it could be. I just, yeah, I wasn't ready. I was learning. I was apprenticing. I wasn't qualified. You know,
And then
to
since then, though, you've been they I don't want to use the word promoted, but they
yeah,
basically
but
ordained you as like a practitioner, like someone who can carry the light and the message. And
yeah, we use the nickname maestro or maestra, like master, right? Um, but or we are not. It's not a guess or like you have to really be really really prepared to do this because the risk of being hurt, being uh, becoming sick and ill, even death is imminent. It's always around the corner. So you have to be very much prepared. I have to know within myself that I'm prepared. My teachers, they have to see and understand that I am ready. Otherwise, it's like sending me out to die. Like they have to know for sure that I am adequately trained and prepared and conditioned to do it.
in our last
Uh,
conversation, you were still in training. Now you're doing it.
Now I'm doing it. Yeah.
So after when we had our conversation, and you described for me the process of what it's like to go through the ceremony and what happens and what gets brought up.
Hmm.
That night when I went, like a few hours after our conversation, my body started having all of the stuff that you had been describing was going to occur. And I went into this weird trance state. I couldn't move out of the bed. It was like the craziest thing ever. And
Wow.
and I attributed it to, like, for some reason I was so into, or I guess I was experiencing what you were describing, that it had some form of psychosomatic effect on my own body, just to be in your space, basically, or like to allow myself to enter your space in that way. It had an effect.
Wow. That's really wild.
Yeah. So ever since that conversation, I've always felt like I've understood deeply the importance of this plant medicine and how helpful it can be for people.
Hmm.
And I've been
It
I've
can be
been
very helpful. It can be very helpful if done correctly. It can be also very damaging and destructive if done incorrectly or with the wrong people. And there's no way to escape that duality. It's in any well of light, any like very concentrated area where there's a lot of, let's say, connection to that source of all of everything, right? You're going to find the polar opposite of that right there with it. So, it's I think I try to balance out, the spiritual bypassing and like the plant medicine community is huge. Like it's all love, it's all light, it's all beauty and rainbows, and like that's all that is there. But the opposite of all that is also present, and we have to be very really conscious of the decisions we're making, of who we're working with. There's too much um, emphasis put on the chemical itself and not enough emphasis on the person giving it to you. That could be the difference between furthering making you sick or healing yourself, becoming healed. There's people on internet forums like Reddit, you'll get a lot of people being like, why would I need to go see a shaman? Even this word shaman is a European term, because we're not really shamans. We're medicine doctors, because we work with medicine. We understand a very specific type of medicine, which is Amazonian plant medicine. Well, why would an Onaya or an ayahuasquero exist for thousands of years if there wasn't a purpose for that, if there wasn't a reason for us to go through all this training? You don't want to, you want to see a well-vetted heart surgeon if you have to have heart surgery. You're not going to go to your buddy down the street and have him open your chest up in his living room. You're going to go to a guy that has the experience and like the licensure and everything that backs up that process, so that you are minimizing your risk as much as possible. Of course, like I'm not the one doing any type of healing, but I'm the one who went through the training in order to transmit plant intelligence to my patient so that the plants can heal them. And that took an insane amount of work and years and years of suffering and dedication to be able to do that, because I play a role in that. Otherwise, why would the human being be involved at all? We're in a symbiotic relationship between plant intelligence and ourselves, and we are working together to help people. So yeah.
So you mentioned the work involved, and that's what I kind of want to dig into now. And I just want to read something from your website here that I thought, I mean, it's an amazing site. The photos, like I was saying before we started recording, just looking at your photography elicits an experience, a very profound experience. So, but what you write on here and what you're saying is I want to just read this, and then maybe we could start here and go into your story a little bit. And on your website, it says, immersed in the depths of the Peruvian jungle, I encountered a guiding light that reshaped my understanding of life. For the first time since childhood, I realized that the only limitations to what I could achieve were the false beliefs and self-imposed barriers within my own mind.
That's right.
So let's start. Like, what started your childhood? What brought you into the Peruvian jungle? We know each other from growing up and going to the same middle school and soccer team. But yeah, maybe just start at the beginning. I'm sure my listeners always request when they like the the personal stories.
Yeah. Well, as I was very fortunate to grow up in a Brazilian American household, so I was raised around that energy, the Brazilian energy, which is a lot of love, a lot of intimacy, a lot of hugging, a lot of kissing. So I was raised to be sensitive and to be loving, surrounded by a lot of feminine energy, a lot of women, a lot of cousins, a lot of aunts. And of course, there were men too, but mostly women in my life. My mother was such a strong force, my grandmothers. And that really set me up to be to understand love and selflessness. Not that I've always acted selflessly, but that I understood what it was like to be looked at, and like I could feel as a child that sense of unconditional love. And so I was always a very nice kid, at times a bit, as in my childhood, maybe pushed a little too much into the feminine aspects of identity. But it set me up to really believe in that love is the greatest force, and that love is the greatest good, and that anything can be achievable if we're living from that expression. And then as as a young teenager and then into my 20s, I started to go the other way and push really hard into the masculine aspects of who I am, with martial arts, jujitsu, playing punk rock music, um, and kind of getting lost in my egotism as much as I could. I like really pushed myself into it as really hard. Fame, wanting women, wanting riches, um, doing things, making decisions that were selfish and consciously making those decisions. I wasn't even, I can't even say that I didn't know what I was doing. I definitely knew what I was doing and that it would have a profound effect on other people in a negative way. But all of that is important because it's part of the adventure of becoming self-aware and to not hide. I When you're told your whole life that you're this kind, gentle, beautiful kid person, you get I got older and I was like, am I really that? Like, is that really true? Um I'm not sure that that's true. I think that there are parts of me that aren't those things as well. And they were just kind of lurking in the shadows, waiting to be expressed. And what I didn't know at the time that I know now was that I was allowing myself to fully incorporate those darker aspects of who I was and become those things to really truly understand what it means to be a selfish person. Of course, I haven't gone to the extreme of like killing another person or anything like that. But how do we really know what it means to kill if we've never done it before? Only someone that's actually gone through that can really talk about it in a way that's I don't know, real. So I really pushed myself to allow those darker aspects within reason, um, to come to the surface, and I paid the karmic repercussions for that. But that was part of the growth and what brought me to the jungle because I realized I wasn't going to get any answers in the United States for the questions that I had about existence, about reality. And the books weren't doing it anymore. The books on yoga, books on Buddhism, the Bible, nothing actually. And the Bible actually came back into my life during my training in a very profound way. Uh, but but I needed to go. I just wanted. I kept seeking, and my mother was like, "Why do you keep looking? What are you looking for?" And she didn't want me to go to the Amazon. She was scared. I said, "Mom, I have no idea what I'm looking for, but I'm not finding it here. I got to keep searching. Something's driving me there." And having Brazilian heritage, uh, maybe that's why I was so attracted to South America. I also think the India, Nepal, just it wasn't it wasn't calling me like that. I felt like maybe it was already too saturated, and there's such a well of spiritual power in Peru, in South America, and that's how I ended up, in that womb of just all the roots and the humidity and the heat and the loudness of the jungle. I found, okay, I something clicked inside of my heart that said, "You're going to find your answer
Okay,
and your
so
question."
what's going on at that time? How old are you at the time? 23, 24?
No, when I went to the jungle, it was 2018. So I'm 38 now. So not too long ago, in my 30s.
Wow. Okay. So this pressure, I can relate to what you're describing. This seeking and trying to make sense of myself. Why all this pain? What is contentment? What is happiness? What's the point of all this? I could relate to all that. And you found yourself traveling to the Amazon. What was it like when you got there? What happened when you arrived? And what was that process like?
Well, I just had to take a shot in the dark. I went on TripAdvisor. Well, I'll tell you that there's of course, a bunch of things that led up to me wanting to go to the Amazon. One, I was already kind of dabbling in psychedelics with psilocybin and vaporized DMT, and I realized I was having experiences that weren't like other most people, because I kept trying to relate with others that had tripped on mushrooms, and they were like, I don't know what you're talking about. And like even other psychonaut people were looking at me like I was insane, let alone my group of friends who weren't interested in those things. So I like really had alienated myself from my own friend group. Um, and I had the unfortunate, but was actually one of the greatest gifts that God ever gave me, which was I went through an abortion with a woman, and the day that she had gone to the clinic, I had just a little bit of DMT left, like crystallized DMT, and I thought, hey, why not smoke this today? So I did, and in my vision, I saw all these mothers giving birth, and the babies were coming out and then crawling towards me, and I had my arms outstretched to pick them up, and they're coming at me for me to pick them up. And then at the very last second, the mothers like pick up the little babies, and bring them back. And they're looking at the baby and looking at me, and they're like, he doesn't want you. He denied you. He denied your existence. He doesn't want you. And that just like completely shattered me, like broke me in the best way possible, because I remember after that, it just faded away. The vision, I felt completely normal again. This lasted maybe 4 minutes. I went outside, was walking up the street. I was living in Chicago at the time, and I just felt this pain in my lower stomach. Um, and I can't say for sure because I'm not a woman, but it was as if that physical process happened within me too. And so I was sharing that experience physically with this woman. And it was just such an incredible gift, because it made me it brought me as close as it could to those actions, the consequences to those actions, and showed me there are consequences to my actions that I cannot see that with my eyes. So it gave me a look into and then I started to question all my actions, everything that I was doing, because I was like, wow, the majority of what I do is unforeseeable what the consequences will be. And so that got me pushed me back onto the path of going back towards the light. And while I see genetic memory in people, ancestral passing down of negative energy and positive. So like we could say on the astral dimension, witches, demons, or angels, or spiritual guardians. While I can barely remember what happened to me last week, so it's kind of insane to want to know what happened to me in a past life. But there was this sort of notion that I had done this many times, that God kept bringing me to a life of choice. At some point in our spiritual evolution, we get to the place where we either keep walking away from God, or we start turning our way towards God. And it was almost like for many thousands of lives, I had hit this exact moment where I just kept choosing myself, kept choosing self-centeredness, egotism, arrogance, because I was so good at it. Like, um, I remember since I was a little kid that while I was a very kind person, I knew exactly how to find and maximize the vulnerability in another person to hurt them. So while there was a bully in my, you know, kids group, friends group, when we were like 9, 10 years old, there was this one bully, and he pushed us around. He was like said a lot of mean things, and he had a very bad relationship with his own father. His father wasn't really around, and I remember the one day that I just had enough of him bullying me, and I remember looking at him and I said, "Well, at least my dad loves me." I was 10 years old when I said that, and it broke him. So I realized that I have this ability and this power to not only help a lot, but I can destroy someone with very few words because I know what to say. Um, so it's just so many years of like developing the capacity for a lot of light and a lot of darkness. And many times I was just choosing the dark. And it was almost like I was like, man, I'm done. I'm sick of it. I can't do it anymore. I've got to choose the other direction. I got to go in another direction. And that's when I started thinking about God.
And this
And
was after the abortion. You get this glimpse. You start to see that all of your actions, all of your behaviors, you're in some sort of a karmic knot. You're continuing to create these results in your life, and then you consciously make a decision to start turning towards God rather than yourself.
Exactly. Because I had like pushed myself so deep into like a hedonistic lifestyle. I was like photography studio, cute girls at the house all the time, smoking weed, drinking, just wanting to have as much sex as I possibly could. Not really making any sort of progress, just sort of like just circling the drain. But I was so addicted to my behaviors that I couldn't see it. And it brought me to this moment of having unprotected sex, taking MDMA at the same time, having sex, meditating afterwards, and poof, pregnancy. And just in denying it, denying the any idea of having that child. And it wasn't until years later into my training that was healed by a much higher intelligence to help me heal that. So all of that brought me to the Amazon, and I just remember flying into and then the last push was I was going to go visit my high school girlfriend in Ecuador. And, just it'd been a decade or something. And we all know what that was really about. I just wanted to see if I could get some again. And the day before I went to Ecuador, I tore my meniscus at jiu-jitsu, canceled the trip, got the flight credits, had surgery, spent 6 weeks at my mother's house recovering. And that's when I started to Google ayahuasca centers, had the flight credits, and right there I was like, let's go.
So are you Googling this while you're also contemplating the nature of lowercase self versus higher self? Are those thoughts going on, or are you just interested or curious about this substance?
No, it's all happening at once.
Okay,
it's all happening at once.
So you're at your mom's and you start looking it up. You get the flight credits. Let's talk about your first trip there. What happens?
What comes to memory is just flying in at night, like early morning. It was still dark. No, it was late at night. And, you just see that vast expanse of blackness, but you can tell that it's all trees, like it's so dark. And I'm stepping off.
I just got done reading this. So I've got like the imagery of the Amazon baked into my brain.
In your mind.
Yeah.
You step out of the plane and you just feel the intensity, the mugginess of this city called Pucallpa, which is like the Shipibo stronghold. That's where most of the Shipibo live. They're about 26,000 deep, the Shipibo. So a pretty big still group, one of the most intact. And someone's there to pick me up, take me to a hotel. It's very, very poor kind of hotel, not even lamps, just the overhead light in the room, and the internet barely works. Check in with my parents, let them know I'm there. And then the center had sent me an email saying, "Hey, this guy Juan, he's going to pick you up in the morning. Be outside at 10." So I'm standing outside, his truck pulls up, and he's like pointing at me. He's like, "Marcos, Marcos." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Vamos." So puts me in a truck, and we drive far out of the city, probably 3 hours in this truck with bags of rice and potatoes and plantains and all other things in the bed. And then we get to this shanty town, sort of on the edge of a river, and there's a canoe, and we get in the canoe, and the guy, I didn't know at the time, but the guy like piloting this canoe was Enrique, was the doctor, shaman. And they take us out. And then I noticed that the water starts getting hotter and hotter, because we had to get out at some point and push the canoe because we were not a lot of water. I was like, "Why is it so hot?" And they're like, "Oh, because this is a boiling river that we're headed towards." And we get to this center, this healing center, and we have to cross this river, and it's literally like steam is just like coming off the water. And they're like, "Be very careful crossing. You have to cross this bridge of these huge rocks. They're like, if you fall, you're gonna burn yourself bad." So like trepidatiously crossing, and then we end up in this. It's a center, but it's like dwellings in the middle of the jungle. That's what it is. Kitchen, hammock, house, the maloca, which is the name for the ceremonial hut that we drink ayahuasca in, and then the individual huts where you sleep, your room. So yeah, that was my first day of being in the jungle like that. Yeah, and very, very just new experience of being in that type of nature.
So what happens once they start the ceremony? Can you describe? Because I'm curious in figuring out when something clicked for you, where you said, I think I've got another thing from your website that I wanted to touch on here, but and I guess I'll read it right here. You said, "Through the wisdom of Amazonian medicine, I unlocked a new sense of possibility and purpose, inspiring me to become an ayahuasquero,
Hmm.
a doctor of Amazonian medicine." So I'm curious about when that clicked. I mean, this first experience, I think we went over on the last podcast. You described it very immersively.
Early.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
It wasn't for a few years. The first time I was there, it wasn't that. I didn't understand how profound it was until I got home. The actual ceremonies I had weren't very intense or anything. Like, I had much more intense, sort of like far out there experiences with visions and just like the feelings and all that. Like, I had one out of three ceremonies where I recognized my father's mistakes, and I was able to forgive him for that. And that was incredible. But it was it wasn't so profound until I got home, because I realized the profound effects of what the healers were doing through their chanting, through their Ikaros. And at the end of that retreat, the Enrique, the ayahuasquero there, he told me, he's like, you should consider dieting plants. And I'm like, dieting plants. What does he mean? I'm not a vegan. It's not in my nature. But that's not what he was talking about. He was talking about this process that they call dieta, or master plan teacher dieting, which is the development of a relationship between plant intelligence and human intelligence. That is what they mean when they use this, say, dieta, because it has many restrictions, both with what we put in our mouths, what we put in our eyes, our ears, who we're allowed to be around, so that our connection is very pure and we minimize risk as much as possible, because the Shipibo healers, or in Enrique's case, he was an Ashaninka, he wasn't Shipibo, but it's another group, but they practice the same science. They have these codes, okay, because we live in a computational universe, or all of reality is computational. There's no like, we're not in some type of like, we ourselves are not in some type of matrix, and everything else is not the matrix. Everything is the matrix. That's all that exists, the computational reality. But there are multi layers to it, multiple levels and levels and levels and levels, and it extrapolates quantumly as well, like infinite versions of it. So our brains we kind of hit a ceiling of what we're allowed to experience based on our evolution. But there's some Easter eggs in the world that give us a chance to maybe see that, oh, there's more. There's more out there. More out there, in there, up or down. It's all the same thing. We're just, we need to use words to organize what we're trying to talk about. So the Shipibo healers, they have access codes to that. So what do? They, through their Ikaro, they open the connection between me and the plant, whatever plant that is prescribed to me that is needed for my progress, for my advancement, to unblock me. It could be a plant, it could be a tree. And so they have to then prescribe me that, and I have to take it, whether it's in a liquid form, or I have to bathe with it, whether it's the bark, the fruits, the leaves, the roots. They're going to tell me how to do it. They're going to give it to me in the correct way. And then I'm going to spend a certain amount of time. Could be 11 days, 2 weeks, a month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, isolated, not eating salt, not eating oil, not eating fruit, not touching people, not having any type of sexual experience. And that's so that the plant can work inside my body. It can start to connect, and it's all going through the crown chakra because it's open. So because it's open, the healer, they have a huge responsibility in keeping me as safe as possible, because it's open to everything. So we have a natural barrier right now, you and me right now, all people. There's a natural barrier that sort of mitigates a lot of astral connections, but not all of it, but some of it.
Depending on how sticky or how strong it is. Yeah. Depending on where a person is.
Right. Now, this has completely been just ripped open. And so you can't be talking to people. You can't just be eating whatever you want. You can't be exchanging sexually. You can't be doing any of that, because we want to minimize. So, and there's still problems. There's still going to be problems, because you're going to catch some flack. You're going to get some things that don't belong inside of you. So during the process, the healer's constantly removing what doesn't belong, recentering the connection and taking away what got attached. Whatever negative entity got attached, got to take it away, center it, center. It's like designing this geometric patchwork. And that's forming the connection between the plant's energy and mine. And the longer I stay, the more I get from it. So the longer I can take it, like the more discipline I have, the more balls that I have, metaphorically speaking, to like not break, the more I can get it. But you make that decision up front. You say, I'm going to do 2 months. You got to do 2 months, because the plant hears you. If you don't finish 2 months, there's consequences to that. You can't just quit. Like, you got to finish what you start. So I always tell people that want to go down to the center, I'm like, if you want to diet a plant to heal yourself, or to learn something about yourself, or to advance a part of you, just commit to what you know you're going to do. If it's 11 days, it's 11 days. There's no problem with that. Don't say I'm going to come for a month and then 9 days in, you're like, I can't do it, because you might as well just light your money on fire. Don't do that. And so he told me, you should consider dieting. It would help you a lot. And so I started researching what that was. And then in 2019, I went to another center and did my first plant diet. It was only 11 days, but it was excruciating because it was the first time I had ever spent pretty much about 9 days by myself, like eating porridge, like just eating chia seeds with oatmeal once a day and not talking to anybody. And then I had 4 ayahuasca ceremonies during that time, which were just incredibly powerful, that stretched me beyond what I thought I was capable of enduring. And that was sort of my first look at what it would be like if I wanted to train, if I wanted to learn from plants. And I met my teacher there. She was hired at this center to work there while she was building her own center, which is a phenomenal feat, because the Shipibo have nothing. They have no money. So to make an investment to open your own center is very difficult. Most of the centers, they're all built for Westerners in the jungle. That doesn't exist for jungle people. That's just to receive outsiders. And they're usually ran and operated by foreigners that have a lot of money to invest, to do the marketing and build the center out in the jungle, put a pool in, nice amenities and all this. My teacher center is very humble, but it's the real deal, because it's her family running the place. There's no like corporatism about it. And me and a couple other students that manage the communication for her and try to facilitate while we're down there, being a bridge, translation and all that. But I met her while she was working there, and somehow I ended up finding out where she was. And the third time I went to the Amazon was when I went to her center, and she really gave me a connection, really opened me. And then the plants themselves started to ask me what I wanted to do with my life. Have I ever considered being a doctor? And I'm like, I can't go to medical school. I'm an idiot. I'm like, I'm not built for academics. And they're like, no, what do you think about what she's doing, what Angela's doing? What do you think? And I'm like, yeah, it's extremely interesting. Like, they sing and things happen and I can feel them inside my body. They're like, well, you're feeling us. You're feeling the us as plants. The entities behind the plant is an incredible, vast consciousness that is transcendent of space and time. But it's still part of the computational reality. But it's there to like elevate us. And so I asked her, I was like, what does it look like to be what would I have to do to learn what you do? And she's like, well, come and do this again for 3 weeks as a trial to see if you can take it. Because when you start when you create a diet connection to learn, it's very different than when you create a diet for someone to heal. They both heal you, but if you want to learn medicine, it's like, I don't know, Navy SEAL training, or, it's insane. Like, only insane people like me.
Yeah, you have to get shown all the different possibilities. It's not just about your own personal experience or your own journey. It's about here's everything that could happen.
Everything. And I was like, give it to me, baby. I was like, I want to see it all. Like, show me the gnarliest things. And man, I was there is some times that I was like, wait, what have I done? Because there's no going back once you start ripping the veils off your eyeballs, and you start seeing the truth, or at least more of reality. I don't know if it's the truth, but it's more.
So what does that look like for you? Like, you're doing this training. you're there for 3 weeks. All these things start opening up. What are you seeing?
A lot of demonic shit, man. You know, a lot of darkness. Um, I think it was, and that was for the majority of my training for a lot of years was yeah, like what's that famous book where he goes down the layers of hell?
Dante's
Uh,
Inferno.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of like that. You know, you're being exposed. I mean, I saw a lot of beauty too. Don't get me wrong. I think there's just something in the that I like. It's not that I like talking about it as a way to scare people. It's just like my personal journey was really like trudging around in the soup, the dark soup. Why? Because I had to be conditioned to handle it way beyond what I thought I could handle. So that way, like I remember this was even later in my training when I went back for 100 days. Um, and about halfway through, I was just like ready to throw it in the towel. And I went to Maestra Angela and said, why am I suffering in this way? You know, what's the point of all this? Why put myself through all this? She's like, how are you going to face the darkness in someone else that someone else has if you can't face it yourself now? Like you're in a position of learning, of receiving, of training. All of this is to prepare you for when for when you have to do it for somebody else. You can't be a coward.
Dude, not only, yeah, you can't be, and also like you can't be surprised, or you don't want to be too emotionally affected when you encounter somebody's darkness. You want to be able to be present and be supportive. You don't want to be like scary thing in a movie, your eyes go, I can't believe that happened to you. You know, you kind of want to be stoic.
Exactly. What it feels like now is when those attachments that people have present themselves to me, it's almost like I'm behind like a piece of glass, because I really am. The trees, the reason why we diet trees and we diet for long periods of time is to receive their protection, not both chemically, like biological protection from sickness, but also energetic protection. So that way there's a shield between me and whatever that person has. So that way, as I'm chanting and I'm cleaning it. We're literally like chanting about cleaning bad energies, cleaning demons, cleaning witches, cleaning whatever it is, whatever presents itself. Like that doesn't get inside my body, get inside my mind. And it's challenging. It's a fight. It's a spiritual battle that has like somatic experience. There's pain in my stomach, there's pain, there's headache, there's negative thoughts, there's sweating, there's prickling on my skin, there's burning, there's immense cold, or a multitude of like symptoms that can occur. But I have to overcome that and just do the job, and then do something with that energy. And why? Because the chanting is channeling the plant's medicine, the energetic medicine of the plant. It's funneling through me to my patient. So it exposes whatever the problem is, comes to the surface, so that we have something, we can remove it. And the plants give you a chunk of it. They don't give it to you all at once. They give you like a piece of it, and you remove. As soon as I finish the job, the plants are in my ear, like, keep going, don't stop, don't be afraid, don't let it get into your head, just keep going. And then they go, okay, Markham, you can stop. And then I finish the chanting, the Ikaro, and then usually the person starts throwing up. They purge it out of it. It's purged out, because now the energetics have been softened, have been released, so then the ayahuasca in their stomach can do its job by removing it. It's like it's absorbing that negative and taking the astral into the physical world, pulling it into the liquid, the ayahuasca liquid, and then they're relieving themselves of it.
So I'm curious. I'm curious about your day-to-day experience, because it sounds like to me. I would just imagine that after going through this process or being in ceremony as many times as you have, that I would imagine that eventually you would create this connection with the plant medicine, that you would be able to access it in some way in your day-to-day life experience without being in ceremony. That your life becomes ceremony.
Yeah, for sure, it is that. It's just not as intense. It's like once you start dieting and you diet a lot, there's no going back, because the dieting process causes a irreversible, permanent change to the way my brain works. If you could really zoom in deep into my brain on like the level of probably below the size of the neuron, you would see the Ikaro, the geometric pattern, which is the plant's identity, intertwined with mine. So it's like etched in there like a stitching, and that stitching can't be removed. You can't take that out. If you took it out, it would probably kill me. So there's no way you can go back from this process. But you can become blocked from it. I can be disconnected, and that presents a lot of problems, which it happens, and someone needs to fix it, help me fix it as quickly as possible. But yeah, I'm living in that way all the time, especially subconsciously when I go to sleep at night. That's when I receive a lot of information about my patients, when who's coming, what their problems are, what I'm facing. That's also, there's a point of inception for me to receive medicine for myself. So it's like in my dream, a doctor in a white coat can come up to me and say, "Hey, take this," and give me a little cup of liquid. And I take it, and I wake up and I'm like, I feel clear. Or I can purge in my dreams. I can throw up in my dreams. I can I can learn something new in my dream. It'll give me all the information that I need about what's happening around me, what's happening with my body, what I ate, if something I ate affected me negatively. It gives me all that information. And so, yeah, like for example, if I want to, this person came to my house just to check me out. They wanted to meet me in person first. Totally reasonable request. So they came and we talked for a little while. They felt really comfortable. They wanted to move forward. I said, "Look, let me show you a little bit about what it is that we're going to be doing." So we sat out on my deck, and I had my pipe with my tobacco, and we do what we call a soplada, or a blowing. This is like a technique used to transfer information. So I can remove something, I can give something to someone, like energy, power, because smoke is lighter than air. And mapacho, tobacco, is a very powerful connective spirit. So it connects us. The smoke rises, and so I can transfer. So he's sitting there. I sing a little bit into my pipe, potentiating the tobacco with my Ikaro, and then I blow him down, blow on his head and his hands. And I said, "Okay, all good." And he decides to leave. So after he leaves, I got the most intense level of paranoia, where I thought he was like some DEA agent. That was happening in my mind. I started freaking out. I was like looking out my window, and he was still sitting outside. And I found out later that his wife had asked him, like, before he takes off, that he makes his phone calls or sends his text messages or puts his GPS before he leaves. So he just was sitting there, texting and like figuring out his GPS before he left. He wasn't doing anything wrong, but it was like, I was buying into this paranoia, his fear, because this person had come because he felt a lack of joy in his life, and he was scared to feel joy, scared to be vulnerable, and because this person had a very horrific episode of abuse when they were 7 years old. So this whole thing happens, right? And then a few hours later, my patient comes over, a different person, for the ceremony that night. So during the ceremony, I start getting really freaked out. like I start hearing helicopters overhead, spotlights, like they're looking for me. And then my plants like very far away, but I hear them. They're like, "This is bullshit. Stop. This is this is that guy's fear playing on your fear. It's just that energy of fear. We call it susto in Spanish. It's a spiritual ailment, susto, when you become traumatized, and that invites in a lot of the energy of fear into us, and then we can't until that clears. Like we're just kind of screwed. And so I start chanting instead of dealing with my patient. I'm dealing with this energy first. Why? Because when I soplad the person, when I blew that guy down with smoke, whatever I took out of his head came to me. So now it becomes my problem.
Right.
Right. I mean, at a fundamental level, everyone's problem is my problem, and my problem is everyone's problem.
Yeah.
But this isn't a very real or a very much real way of
Practically
like
speaking, the individual is everyone and everything is a manifestation of the individual. We have our own ecosystem that we influence other individuals. Like we're all playing off of one another in this dance.
Mm-hmm. So as what does an Amazonian doctor do? You come to me, you have some type of problem. Well, I I take the problem and it becomes mine. So it's no longer you're not suffering from it anymore. But I'm protected by plants so that I can do something about it. I can extricate, I can remove it, move it along, put it somewhere else, and I walk away unscathed. You're healed. I'm fine because I went through the training to be able to do that.
It makes sense
know?
to me on an extremely practical level because certain people have the bandwidth and the skill set to do types of work that other people don't have. So it just
it's very practical.
Like a person wouldn't need to learn the skills that you have to treat themselves if they can be in relationship and grow through what they're going through and continue to live the way that they can live.
Yeah. Of course, the patient has a lot of responsibility in it. They could, if they're not doing the work themselves, then, what's the point? They wouldn't be in front of me anyway, especially people that coming to drink ayahuasca. Like, I'm like, look, you're putting it in your mouth yourself. Like you are wanting to do this with me. We're doing it together. You're putting in your spirit, your energy, your capacity to overcome this, and we're going to overcome it together. You're not doing it alone. Okay, we have the power of the plants that I've dieted. You have me here, but you are drinking this. Okay, this isn't about spectacle. I always tell people, I'm like, if you want to come drink ayahuasca with me, you're not looking for a spectacle. You're looking to feel better. Because it's a process. It takes multiple ceremonies for us to remove the unblock the person, to purge out those energies. And the first few aren't fun. It's a lot of throwing up. It's a lot of darkness. It's a lot of crying because you're witnessing what it actually is. Everything that you've buried down inside and that you haven't been able to process because you weren't ready for it. You weren't prepared. You were too young. You developed all the self-defense mechanisms. But if you're coming to drink ayahuasca with me, you're saying, I'm ready to release this, which means I'm going to feel it. I'm going to have to feel it all. But you don't have to feel it all by yourself. I'm with you. The plants are with you. They're guiding the whole thing is completely guided. If I don't sing, nothing happens. There's no ceremony. That everything is created by the Ikaro. That's what people say. Man, you start singing and I start getting really sick. I start getting nauseous. You stop singing and the nausea dies down. And then you start singing again, the nausea rises. And it's like, how powerful am I? How fast can I do it? Other shamans that are much stronger than me, oof, they just bam, 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 bam. It just comes out quick because they've had so many diets. They're so powerful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe, I'm getting there. I'm strong, but I'm, definitely nowhere near the top.
No.
So it takes me a little longer. You know what I mean?
That's so cool, dude. The idea, it feels like, it's just everybody has their way of orienting with source or with their highest potential. Everyone has their own path towards actualization, or I guess a lot of things that come to mind is entering into harmony with the divine, or like finding purpose and meaning for one's life. There's all these paths, and the one that you're describing is so interesting to me because it's like you got these two things. You've got your individuality, you've got the plants, which are breathing us all day, every day. Like it's
Yeah.
constant. So you've got this entry point through plants, practical entry point through plant medicine to meld into or tap into the wider consciousness or source as it expresses itself or is itself through you.
Yeah.
Um, where do you find the balance between Markham, the life that you're leading, and the life that's being led through you? Is there a balance there? Is it one and the same? How do you work with that? Can you see where Markham shows up and where the universe itself is, or God itself is? Are you able to differentiate?
Um, I think what comes to mind is that in the spiritual community, you'll get a lot of, or you get people that are very much like, and almost like anti-human, or like it's all the plants. It's always the plants. Like you can't take any sort of responsibility for a person's healing. You can't take any responsibility, and I think that that's not a good way to look at it, because if I look at it, if that's the way I'm going to look at it, that means that's also for a way for me to excuse myself for doing any harm, for doing wrongdoing. I could say, "Oh, no, that's your baggage. That's what the plants gave you." And the person's like, "Well, I feel worse, not better." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, that's the way the plants work." I don't ascribe to that. I'm like, no, I take partial responsibility for what's happening here. The healer brings their color, right? It's coming through my body, through my throat. So think about it like this: like it doesn't matter what I'm singing, like the words that I'm saying. What matters is the intention in my mind, what's happening behind the words. A lot of healers, it sounds good, it sounds pretty, and the words sound right, but they're actually doing a lot of destruction to you. They're manipulating you. They're convincing you of things for their own selfish reasons. It's like, have you heard of the word city in
Yeah,
yoga?
city powers. Yeah,
Yeah, this is that. It's the same thing. I'm like, I don't use an Ikaro for my own like idea of what I think I should be doing, or how I think I should help someone. No, I open the ceremony, the appropriate medicine comes, the appropriate plant or tree, Ikaro comes, and I sing the Ikaro. And whatever comes up, I deal with it. I remove it. I don't add my own ideas into what I think the person should have or not have, or remove or not remove. That's how I can get hurt, or that's how I can hurt the person. So what I do is I just center myself within my own. That's why I told you about, I was raised to be a very loving person, and I developed compassion from an early age. Plenty of levels of compassion to go, but I I I center myself around compassion, around those Buddhist uh, principles, and sing from the heart. And that's my gift of where Markham is interjecting into it, is that Markham does care for the well-being of others, wants the best for others, and Markham is willing to put himself into that process. But at the same time, Markham is always holding in his mind that the real healers here are the plants. They're the ones with the ability to actually do it. But Markham has to bring those plants into this three-dimensional reality. If Markham doesn't sing, the plants cannot connect. So I have to sing. I have to open my mouth and do it. Now, my plants are like They tell me I drink and I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for the effects. All of a sudden I start hearing sing, open your mouth. I could just sit there and not sing. Nothing's going to happen if I don't sing. The patient might have an experience. They might start seeing visions. They might start having some, but it could go sideways really quickly, or nothing happens. And a lot of healers are like that. They're lazy. They don't want to sing. They don't want to, they might fill your head with visions, but they won't actually exercise anything out of you. They won't take anything out of you because they're tired. They can receive that energy and it can hurt them, and they don't want to deal with that. So it's I recognize that my role requires me to put my money where my mouth is. Like, do I have the balls or not to take this away from someone, to help extricate this by funneling them, transmitting the right energetic medicine to remove it. And ultimately, the fallout, I got to deal with the fallout. But I have a strong network of healers and teachers that are interested in my well-being. So when I'm not feeling well, I call them and they help me. Did that answer the question at all? I don't know.
Yeah, perfectly. I mean, sometimes I'll ask questions because there's something I need to see and you let me see it. Like it was something I'm working through was the reason the question got asked, and you unlocked it for me.
Here's something else that comes up a lot for me, like, or that was told to me. My plants told me one day, they're like, it's not about not having any type of ego, Markham. It's about aligning your ego with the light. Like, you came into this process arrogant, which brought you this far. Like, your arrogance is what got you here. Because if you didn't have that arrogance, you probably and you were too trepidatious, you wouldn't have done what you've done. Like, it's too intense. Like, but you thought in your mind that you could handle it, and you didn't come from a place of humility about it. You came from a brazen place of like, fuck it, I can drink, give me 2 shots of it, I'll take it. And you've had those experiences of getting whipped for it, and over time you've become humble, you express humility, and now your ego's in the right place. But you got to have balls of steel. And I say that metaphorically because some of the most powerful healers I know are women. But they, like, you cannot go into it like being like, oh, I'm so the humility comes from like, no, I went through this. Like, I know what I'm doing. When I drink, I know I don't drink. I drink with like my muscles flexed. I don't, like, ready for war. And that's what the non-healer people that are dieting, some of them will be like, it's all love and light, it's all peace. You ask any maestro, they're like, this is about war, dude. Like, they're like, you got to come into this ready for war. You can't come into this I don't come into it thinking bad things are going to happen. Of course, as I'm sitting there blowing, I'm like, thank you, God. Thank you for this beautiful ceremony. Thank you for the healing that's going to transcend tonight, for the amazing things that we're gonna see, the amazing things we're gonna feel. Thank you for everything. And I know that you got my back if things go sideways. I know that you're gonna help me get through this. And I'm strapped to the gills for whatever happens. If nothing happens, great, awesome. But if something does happen, I'm ready for it. It's like training jujitsu for all these years, like, never been in a street fight. Hopefully never will be in a street fight. And I don't go around looking for one, right? And there are shamans that they go around looking for fights, spiritual fights. They drink ayahuasca, they go look in their vision, trying to find someone with power to fight them. That's insane and stupid, and a great way to get yourself killed or hurt. But I don't do that. But if someone's going to come after me, I'm ready to try to handle myself. And you got to have balls.
That's awesome. I mean, it's just so awesome. I mean,
it is awesome.
Gosh, what is? I just think it's like this is what you get to do all the time. This is what your life gets to be. How it's just so cool.
It's
Did you,
awesome,
did
dude.
you
It's
think
so
that this
cool.
was possible? Like you read comic books as a kid and you're like, oh, I wish that like, that I could be a superhero, or I wish that these things like this magic was real, or I could go on adventures and EverQuest and all this stuff. And then you have to you have to wake up from this fake dream that's created around us through society and chaotic emotional states and grippiness and tightness and me, the three words me, mine, my, all these things.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
wake up from that and you realize like, oh wow, like you were describing, there's levels and layers and insight, and things are not what they seem. That life itself is this miraculous tapestry, and you're a thread. Like everyone's their own thread and they get to weave their own tapestry, and it's weaving itself through your experience, through my experience. And it's the weirdest part that I've been leaning into, or trying to make sense of, is the capital R reality, or being itself, whatever it is that's speaking me and living and breathing us, has roots in reality, in a way to where the dream of your life, or the dream of my life, is creating itself in alignment with this individual, with my unique temperaments, conditionings, belief systems, which is why I'm always interested in eradicating belief systems. I'm more interested in experiential understanding and awareness and learning from other. Like I hear your vantage point, and I get to experience it, and I get to look at the world through your eyes, and hopefully take some of that DNA with me from this conversation. Because
right.
I don't see separation. I do and I don't. That's why when I ask you that question about where you see yourself in relationship to the whole, and you answered it. It's my responsibility as a person in my environment to be as effective and as prepared and as trained as I possibly can be of service to whatever this is.
Yeah,
That's where I
exactly.
would be.
Yeah. I it's that God just wants, from my perspective, God just wants us to have a full life, whatever that looks like. And for me, I'm really into the whole superhero dynamics and this sort of like demigod sort of thing, like rising to something higher than myself. And I needed to go to the farthest end of that. I always had a lot of dreams of what it would be like to be Superman or Iron Man. And I always wore those characters around on me all the time. I always played with that wardrobe internally. Maybe I wasn't telling people these things, but tried to embody those aspects of those demigods, which are just modern day spirits, right? They're modern day Greek gods, they're modern day biblical characters, right? They're going through a transformative process that requires them to rise above their own selfish desires in service of others. But in return, they actually get exactly what they wanted in the first place, which is to be seen, to be heard, to be respected, to be loved, to be and then there's the story arc of like getting to a place of being idolized, of being worshipped, and then they have that decision to make of whether they let go of that to transcend even farther, or they buy into it. And that's when you see like the bad guys come out, which are not actually bad guys. They're just a reflection of the other side of it. Um, and like learning to back to like I see it a lot in this culture, this plant medicine culture, and amongst healers, of like the dangers of like opening a center, uh, where you're the sole source of this incredible power, and you have 10 people coming to see you over a weekend, and you're not being able to spend a lot of one-on-one time with each individual person. So it becomes very performative, not because you want it to be, but because just the natural container is performative, because it's about singing, it's about the Ikaro, and they're beautiful and they're powerful, they're strong. So you're the one sitting there expressing the plant's energy through your body, and you have 10 people receiving it, And you don't might not have the time to explain to them that look, it's not me, it's the plants that you're feeling. So then over time you have more and more people kind of like start to worship you, and you can get completely lost and swept up in that. And then it becomes corrupted, and then you start abusing your power, or it becomes diluted in some way. So for me, it's like I get to be I get to be the superhero I've always wanted, but I try to do my best to keep it real contained. And so when I working one-on-one with someone, which is the way it used to be done for centuries, right? The center thing is just for Westerners. This is how I try to protect myself, because it's very vulnerable for me and for the person, right? I'm with them for 5-6 hours in a room, just the two of us, and I'm giving that person everything I got. And then once the technical parts of the job are finished, the Ikaros are done, right? The plants say, hey, it's time to settle down. Then now it's a space for reflection. You don't need to continue singing. That's a space for us to talk for an hour, 2 hours, integrate, express, teach, and give that person a better understanding of what it is that's happening. Because a lot of people say, man, you're like inside my mind, like you're reading my mind. And I tell them, I'm like, I'm not in your mind. The plants are in your mind. Okay. I'm not inside of you. The plants are inside of you. But the plants are telling me what's going on with you. They say it's this, it's apathy, it's sadness, it's abuse. Sometimes I can see it. It plays out like a movie in visually what happened to this person. But I'm just the plants are giving me information, and I'm passing that information to you, or I'm understanding this information and then doing something about it. And the only time I'm ever interjecting is because I feel a deep sincerity inside of me that everyone deserves to have this connection. So I'm going to share with them to the max. I'm going to give them everything that I can. I'm going to connect them as much as they're willing to receive it. And, maybe other shamans, they don't want to do that. They don't want to show you the more secret aspects of it. They don't want to open you up to the higher dimensions completely. Because I don't know, maybe they're afraid that you can take something from them, or but I'm not like that. I'm like, my injection into this is to just give you everything that I got, give you everything, because I want you to feel like a superhero too.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is, there's a book that comes to mind called A New Pair of Glasses, and it change the way you see the world. The entire world changes, and it starts with me. It starts in here. It starts with the person. And it's just so interesting that once I got hip to this type of stuff, and when I started seeing beyond what the world was trying to tell me, and I started seeing through it, it made life infinitely interesting. And the experience of growing through my own shadows, or working through my own life, and grow and expanding and evolving and stretching in ways I never thought I was capable of. Like once the door gets open the way that you're describing it, and you make the courageous step to walk through it, it's like, I mean, we're here once and we get to have this amazing experience with, I don't know how to use other words other than divinity. I'm walking around on a daily basis going like, this is just incredible. Like, it's just incredible. And, as a small kid, when we're playing soccer on the soccer field, I didn't have words to describe the sense of enjoyment, I guess, or I didn't know what life was supposed to be or wasn't supposed to be. So, that's where I think we connected. Both of us we were brought up in loving environments, and sensitive and fun loving. I remember sleeping over at your house and just playing PlayStation all night. And like, it was easy to for me, I didn't have any real traumas or pains as I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this interest to uncover, the calamity of humanity, so to say, or the chaos of our species. And like, and work with people and try to make sense of mental illness and why we behave the way we behave. And you stare in that darkness long enough and it affects you, and you have to learn how to grow through it. So any person that is willing to take a look at themselves, and I mean, is just a courageous person. So, and the ability, or what happens after that, is the reward is so worth it. Like it's a little, like anytime you're exercising, a little discomfort now. It's just the benefits is always, it's always worth it.
Yeah,
So,
it's people, we are afraid of doing self-editing because we take it so personally, where it's like, if I could put, if someone was sitting in like just a therapy session with me, and I could just say, okay, who is Adam, and let's write down all of the things that Adam is, the positives, and let's say in the middle, and then like the negatives. Let's write it all up here. Okay. And now look at it as someone that's not you. Like, then we just erase the name Adam and put Brian up there. Be like, what about Brian do you like? And what about Brian do you not like? Is there anything here that you would want Brian to work on, or overcome or change about himself that would be beneficial for Brian? And it's like, having that, creating that separation. I think that's what plant medicine can do for us, is like separate us a little bit from who we are. It's very difficult to change who I am when I'm busy being who I am, because I'm in the mode of being it. If I can stop being Markham for a little bit, then I can decide, well, what is Markham doing that I like, and what are some things that I don't like that Markham's doing, and how can I fix that? Like, that's like that eternal self, become switching the perspective of like, not always operating inside the ego and looking at the ego from a higher vantage point, and being like, oh, this perspective of consciousness is a place where I can direct the ego. But if I slip my consciousness into the wardrobe, into the mask, how can I fix it? How can I change anything when I'm being it? I'm pressing play, right? Like, you press pause on the programming, and then you go and you look at the web, like the back end of the website, right? You got to stop all the the interface of the website has to be put on pause. Like, that's why you get a message. You visit a website and you want to buy something. They're like, we're sorry, but our shopping cart is unavailable right now. Check back at 6 p.m. and the cart will be working again. Why? Because there's a programmer making adjustments to the cart and fixing any type of like problem in the programming, and then fixing the language, and then it hits run and it checks to make sure it's working the way it's supposed to, and then they put it back online. And that's kind of what a plant medicine experience is, or a ceremony. It's like, we're putting stop, we got to hit pause on being you, so we can go into the back end, make some adjustments, remove some viruses, put some new cybersecurity there, so you're stronger, you're more protected, your code is running more efficiently, and then we hit play again. And then that's when people, a few days later, or a week later, 2 weeks later, they start to say, hey, like, my mind is just functioning much better than it was. There's not so much distortion or friction, or my thoughts are clearer. I feel more at peace. I feel more connected. I got a new job. I got a new relationship. I was able to leave the bad relationship I was in, because that's not your identity anymore. We've taken it out.
man, freedom.
Yeah.
That's the weirdest thing. The freedom thing is so weird to me, because at least my experience has been, it's freedom from all these things, all these belief systems, all these blockers in my own life that prevent me from experiencing life in its fullness. That's freedom. Freedom is like, it may not, anyway, I could go on tangents forever. Dude, this has been great. I'm so glad that we were able to do this, and I know we're going to do it again. I'm going to link your website into the podcast, so anybody with more questions, they could just go to the website. Yeah, they could find you, send you a message there.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, and feel free to hit me up too. Anybody who may find this, I'm happy to answer questions or connect you with Markham. And is there anything you want to say before we close her up?
Um, no. I think we've said enough, for now. But just, yeah, or maybe I would say, like, man, don't be afraid to live your life. Like, don't be afraid to live out your dream. Like, just 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 fucking do it, like Shia LaBeouf would say, you know?
Do
Fucking
it.
do it.
Yeah. Well, that's the episode for today. Thank you all for joining, and yeah, have a most excellent rest of your morning, evening, or good night, and we'll catch you on the next one. Okay, well, that was it. Thank you so much for hanging. And if you enjoyed the show, please like or subscribe. It really helps me as I continue to grow the channel. Any thoughts you may have about what you just listened to, post them in the comments. Any ideas for topics or guests, send them my way. I'd like to continue building and growing this and improve the show. So thank you guys so much for being here. And yeah, stay excellent. We'll see you on the next one.